Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, speed gamers around the world, Zelda fans alike. Welcome to the A Link to the Past Randomizer 2019 tournament. Match today between MrScruffNinjaTuna and Compiling. My name is Uday Monistic, joined today by Koi. Koi, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing pretty lovely myself. And of course, we have the first game in the best of three series between MrScruffNinjaTuna and Compiling. Koi, you mind explaining to us what kind of settings we have for this kind of race today?
Well, this is game one, so there will be all just normal tournament settings here. Just 7-7 open defeat Ganon seeds. It would be game two, but Mr. Scruff was a little bit asleep during their first scheduled game. So we've rescheduled it for today. So just normal settings.
Such as life in the world of Randomizer and strange hours. This is quite an early match for most of the US folks out there, and of course, even pretty late in the morning for the EU folks. And then this is actually the elimination bracket side of this group, as both have already done a series of three.
So one of these runners will be eliminated from the tournament following this series.
Yes, and the winner of this series will go on to face Relkin to try and survive the group. The winner of that series will be joining Gamachu.
Which of these runners did Relkin beat in the first series?
Relkin beat MrScruffNinjaTuna and then went on to face Gamachu.
It's a potential rematch.
Well, some exciting developments early on in the seed. We have big 20s coming out of the Tier 1 tree pole, and some bombs for MrScruffNinjaTuna, making the escape sequence possible, at least the front half of it, pending more bombs, of course.
Nah, he's just gonna save and quit. Take those bombs. He'll be a little annoyed at how easy it is to find rupees, though.
Yeah, that would be a little bit unfortunate, but the good news is that with those three bombs, you have options. You can go to Mini Moldorm Cave, you can take Sanctuary.
We're going to Gina's Cave, though, it looks like.
Yeah, so heading towards the dam, of course, on the way. And then you still have the choice, depending on what you get here. You could end up with boots, you could end up with a weapon. So keeping the options open early on. We see Compiling heading towards Kakariko early, taking advantage of Lost Woods along the way.
Yeah, definitely an interesting play from Mr. Scruff, because like you're looking for 3 bombs for Kakariko. That's the main thing we're looking for at this stage in the game. And now he has those 3 bombs, but doesn't go to Kakariko. Oh, he's gonna get 6 though. That'll be enough bombs to do Mini Moldorm Cave. It'll be a little tight, though. I imagine he'll still go to Agina's.
And still has the option on a save and quit to buy more if necessary. One thing we noticed out of Compiling side is that there is a sword along the path of Northern Hyrule, so we already have a weapon, which is really nice.
And Mr. Scruff is actually going on to Mini Moldorm Cave with 6 bombs. So 1 to open it and 5 to kill these Mini Moldorms. You can do it with as few as 3, but they don't always cooperate.
No, I'm pretty sure everyone who plays this game feels that they conspire against you.
And there's 2 wasted right away. He cannot mess up anymore. He'll have to get the double on the left side. Oh, he's got it!
Gets the double.
Oh, that was so close, dude!
Lots of excitement coming out of the early game. Getting a shield for his trouble, some health, and the bow.
Oh, it's nice. And no bombs, he cannot go onto Ice Shard Cave. Ice Shard Cave is pretty well orphaned by this play now. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, if we had something like the Power Glove, there'd be a 50-50 bomb rock that we could pick up outside of that cave. Or I think it's guaranteed, actually. But yeah, so you would definitely have an option.
It is 50-50. I think my worst attempt was like 5 before I got the bomb out of it before.
Yeah, and thankfully, if you do have that Power Glove, you can jump into the cave and exit the cave, no problems. It's pretty easy to spam it, even if it's time-consuming. Well, compiling also picked up our first medallion of the seed, Quake, and of course in that mini Moldorm cave from MrScruffNinjaTuna we saw the Powder. Powder, of course, being an excellent safety, arguably the best in the game, in most people's opinion, seeing as you can make fairies out of them, but it's also an item location check out of the hammer, or I'm sorry, the hammer cave, the bat cave, although we'll need the hammer to get there.
And we got the Master Sword too. Mr. Scruff is going to be pretty annoyed when he finds all these swords just sitting around. I'm a little worried for him with Ice Rod Cave because in this situation, you don't just go to Ice Rod Cave, right? Like, it's orphaned. You have to accept that it's orphaned. And the only time it's going to be a little bit convenient to come back is if he finds either the flippers and he can check it while like on his way to Zora, or the flute and he can just fly there real quick.
Yeah, and we may end up finding a situation where we've exhausted every other check, and that's the most painful scenario in which you go to that cave. So, Koi, did you happen to catch what was on the lumberjack ledge? I know that MrScruffNinjaTuna did stop to look at it.
I did not see. Usually somebody yells at us, though, if it's something good. Oh, no, I did see. It was the mail upgrade. You're right.
Alright, well, hard to fathom anybody taking the time to go pick that up, even if we're required to do Aghanim at some point, potentially.
As a runner myself, it's very easy to completely ignore things that aren't progression, I guess. Like if I see something up on the library, unless it's a progression item, I just assume it was nothing and just move on, and I completely forget whether it was a piece of heart or 20 rupees or what. They're all the same.
Well, thankfully for the chat, and of course for our benefit, we do have a tracker on the screen, and a big thanks to Sinhei for providing the tracking today, definitely keeping us honest. Well, our two runners are going to round out their respective overlapping checks. Compiling has an option to potentially actually check the Ice Rod Cave, or even go west to Agina's. We'll opt to go towards Mini Moldorm for the density.
Yeah, this is the standard South Shore route, and dam all the way over to Ice Rod Cave. Lately, though, I have seen a lot more people doing like early Agina's Cave check, more as like a safety option, you know, just in case it has something.
I was also pretty impressed to see that we had a full magic decanter refill from the Hoarder Crab, a very useful drop that we could potentially take advantage of later.
Yeah, we're gonna want that when we're headed to Aga Tower or something, which is currently what this looks like. After you finish South Shore and Kakariko, and the only thing you have is a Master Sword, Aga Tower is at the front of your brain, for sure. And compiling will be headed over to Ice Rod Cave, so we'll get to see this item that Mr. Scruff was unable to grab.
And early game knowledge is definitely valuable. If it ends up being something critical, MrScruffNinjaTuna may end up wasting as much as several minutes to 15 to 20, depending on how far we're willing to go. Out of logic checks, of course, can sometimes put you in a pitfall. And if you end up doing them to avoid going back to something that's orphaned, we've seen that many times in this tournament where it just ends up, you know, cascading downwards. So today in the Ice Rod Cave, just big 20. MrScruffNinjaTuna dodges that bullet and saves time.
Yeah, that I mean, if it had been progression, that like there's all different kinds of progression that it could have been. Like if it was the Moon Pearl, you know, he probably last locations it and is a little bit behind getting to the Dark World. If it's the required Ice Rod or something, like he probably just straight loses the game. So really good news for him that it is just 20 rupees. He probably will check it eventually, but nothing to be there.
Well, we're going to find our way moving eastwards towards the Eastern Palace. Both runners actually at the same time, compiling with a noticeable advantage thanks to the Ice Rod Cave skip. Or I'm sorry, opposite, but still better routing will produce a faster Eastern check. Which 3 items here? We still have Eastern up until the Dark Rooms, potentially Lamp in this process.
Oh, speaking of, the lamp and the flute and a bottle. Very nice items.
Finding Lamp, and while you already have the bow, it really makes this a rewarding chain of events. You can complete this dungeon, we have a really nice sword to work with, and Flute would be a natural follow-up play once you save and quit out of there.
I feel like they both would have continued on and full cleared this dungeon, even without the lamp. But yeah, it does make the rooms a lot nicer. Unfortunately, the lamp does put something else in logic.
Yes, that's true. We don't currently have a path towards the Dark World, and of course that is required in order to beat this game, unless you're playing 0 crystal requirement and you do some weird stuff with bunnies to... I don't know, can you actually... Could you do a revive? No, you can't revive to do it for like a dungeon revival, so yeah, you would have to have Moon Pearl to fight Ganon in any situation.
Yeah, in a normal seed, yeah.
But yeah, so we're definitely gonna need access to the Dark World to continue in the game, and without a clear path to it, Aghanim through the Castle Tower seems to be very much on the table with the item configuration we have now.
Yeah, at this point in time, Aga is almost a certainty. I mean, we still have some checks left to do. Like, the flute gives you access to the Old Man in Spectacle Rock Cave. We haven't seen Agina's Cave at all. But that's about it.
Now, of course, ways that we could access the Dark World, there is, of course, Aghanim through the portal to the pyramid. We would need to find Moon Pearl either there or before then. As you mentioned, there are some 8 items that we can access on the mountain. So plenty, there, and then, of course, Agina's Cave. And if we manage to get access to the desert, we can find something in there. So there's still some, possibility. But even then, our runners may even consider it if they have other access to the Dark World without Hammer, because that would get them to Palace of Darkness early.
Yeah, like one of the weird things about like when to gamble Aga, because like often a seed will look such like an Aga seed that you feel like, you know what, I should just do Aga. Maybe there's something on the pyramid that makes it nicer instead of just waiting until it's for sure Aga. And one of the things that you really look for is, well, once I kill Aga, what can I do? And usually what you're looking for is like either the hammer to go like south down to Hyde Cave and all that, the bow to guarantee more checks in Palace of Darkness, or a way to get across the river. And we already have that bow, so the only real question right now is, where is the Moon Pearl? I feel like if this was me running, assuming I get nothing else in Eastern, I would probably just do Front of Escape and then immediately kill Aga and not check anything else. Because this is so obviously going to be an Aga seed.
Fair
and then
point.
if the Moon Pearl's just sitting on the pyramid, like, I get super rewarded.
Well, you know who's not feeling rewarded right now? Compiling, although that's a nice shield upgrade. Nice to have, good quality of life item. Compiling was banking on that being an important item. MrScruffNinjaTuna actually took a lead here by skipping that item, and seeing as the shield's not essential, that ended up being a rewarding decision.
Yeah, he saves about a minute by skipping that chest, but it's still an item, and Mr. doesn't know that it's nothing, right? It feels a little gambly, especially when you're looking for Dark World access to be skipping that chest. But, it's definitely paid off for now, as long as he doesn't go back to it.
And sadly, if you end up in Go mode and you are running low on locations, and say if you're doing Palace of Darkness with Mirror, you might just do that. However, MrScruffNinjaTuna pulling off of a great fast kill strat on Armos Knights will be the first to get a crystal, just barely 12, almost 13 minutes in. Compiling's showing off a lot of really great Eastern Palace tech, good speed tech.
He's going back. This is a horrendous situation. I super disagree with this.
And as you mentioned, it's just a thing that will eat away at the back of your mind. Every runner has been in this position, and MrScruffNinjaTuna perhaps thinking, hey, this is game 1 of the series. I can't speak for him perfectly, but I'm assuming they don't want to leave any chance up in the air.
It just feels so wrong. Like if you're not willing to orphan the location, you shouldn't skip it in the first place.
A fair point to make, but MrScruffNinjaTuna is in command of this run. And we'll see if they can turn it around. I mean, this is an early decision. This is going to cost a couple of minutes, so it's certainly not insignificant. And we'll get to see from compiling where we're going next. Of course, as we mentioned before, that flute's going to point us pretty much straight towards Kakariko Village. I imagine, as you mentioned before, the 7 items on the mountain, or we don't have hookshot to get over there.
Yeah, it's only 2.
The 2 items on the mountain, certainly appealing.
Yeah, he'll activate the flute here, probably check Sick Kid, and I mean, there's 0 reason not to check the old man, but there is reason to not go up and check Spectacle Rock Cave. And with it looking like such an Agaseed, I feel like maybe at most check the old man and then just go straight to the escape. It just feels real bad if you walk all the way up to Spectacle Rock Cave, there's nothing there, and then later find the mirror and have to do that walk again.
Now, that might be a good reason for someone to choose to do escape first. As we see a lot of runners do, a lot of runners tend to put off going up the mountain the first and second times until they have at least some equipment to explore further. Well, the Sick Kid, unfortunately, is only a quarter healthy, sending us on our way without even a refill. Thankfully, compiling at full health doesn't have to worry about that. We'll have to contend with a cave, thankfully not in the dark, because of that lamp that we picked up on the way into the Eastern.
Yeah, the old man is essentially like a time neutral check. Like it doesn't cost you anything to check this at all because it gives you the save and quit warp afterwards.
And it's even better, too, when you have the flute, as you can pretty much get a full heal as fast as possible in any save and quit, and flute away even faster when you're coming out of the old man cave.
Oh! That changes things, finding the glove.
And it may even have some consideration for how we approach the escape sequence, seeing as we have lamp, we can go backwards through the back half, and we can open the grave to get there. So, seeing as neither of our runners have done any of the escape, that might actually be pretty appealing.
So I feel like finding the glove right there, it means, okay, well, I straight up cannot kill Aga without the Moon Pearl now. Doing it without the Moon Pearl before made a lot of sense because you were missing everything for Dark World access. But now you have this glove, which means now you just need the hammer before you're a Moon Pearl away. Or the other glove, I suppose.
Yeah, so the options available expand, and, with the limited amount of items accessible, even with Power Glove, as you mentioned, runners have to consider it. Interesting, MrScruffNinjaTuna opting for some DLC text.
Just memeing us. Second bottle in Nagina's cave.
I'm here for it, though. The devs put in a lot of hard work and effort, and, he's just celebrating them, and I appreciate that. And compiling will unfortunately have the same fate, but I mean, a blue bottle is not bad if you're going to pick up anything.
One really unfortunate aspect of finding the gloves, too, is that we have one other check that's now become in logic that we don't really want to do. The king of fishes himself, Zora, the 500 rupee check. And unfortunately, we're not anywhere close to having the money for that.
So you're telling me that this is an attempt to get our money, it's a phishing scheme?
Okay. Yuna! Don't do that.
What?
You crack me up, man.
It's a little early. And speaking of early, now I can fathom in the back of my mind MrScruffNinjaTuna having continued that escape sequence, attempting to do that in the dark, and in hindsight, I'm very glad I didn't. Speaking of
when he was at the uncle?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have the bombs for that. 3 bombs wouldn't have been enough.
I just gotta get a great drop. Or a good chest.
Oh, compiling is actually fake flippering. Why? Don't do that.
Well, I think the added benefit of the Moon Pearl might be enticing. That is 2 more checks with the Waterfall Cave, and with bow and bombs, we could potentially splash delete for the ledge.
He cannot, actually, because he killed, what's his face? Armos, and didn't reset the console. Well, I guess the
That
lamp,
is
with the
good
lamp, you
knowledge.
can fix it without resetting. I usually just reset.
Do you know the deep inner workings of why that is? Why you have to reset?
You know, I don't know why it breaks it. It has something to do with there being too much stuff. Like you go over the limit or something.
That's pretty interesting.
I can give you a list of people that can explain it way better than I could, for sure.
Well, certainly more research for me.
I just know if you kill Armos with the regular bow or Lama with the regular bow, you have to fix it before you can splash delete again.
Well, I'm definitely not questioning it. Just interesting. This game always teaches you something new every day.
I believe there's a way you can fix it with the lamp by like spamming the lamp, but I'm not sure.
It kind of harkens back to when this stuff was first kind of discovered, and the big meme in the speedrun community was doing heart deletion and trying to do a low % run with 3 hearts. Amazingly, some people have done that.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive speedrun for sure.
Well, here comes that sequence break, compiling, going all this way to fake flipper, and then get the water walk sort of thing from exiting the cave. Will not be rewarded, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, he also doesn't have enough rupees for Zora, so like he's coming up here just to see what's on the ledge.
Come on, 300 on the ledge.
And nothing there. Okay, so Splash Delete ended up not mattering because it's nothing anyway. So that's good. But it's a significant time loss to do these checks.
Yeah, in an ideal world, you'd be able to pair this with Catfish, have a mirror and at least make all of those checks a little bit less painful, route them all together. But without those items, compiling, hoping to kind of fish out a little bit of extra progression that MrScruffNinjaTuna is probably going to find here in the escape.
And what's really unfortunate is if this ends up being an Agassi, which is definitely what it looks like right now, you probably check Catfish then, well before you ever find the mirror. And when are you doing Zora? Ever? Never?
Last location?
And as far as I'm concerned, compiling will never visit King Zora in this seed.
Yeah, short of like some massively required thing.
I know, I'm just really surprised that he did the fake flipper at all. Because the one check that was actually in logic he couldn't do without more rupees.
Well, neither of our runners appear to wish to try to farm rupees, assuming... Well, actually, no, I'm immediately corrected by compiling. Although, you can hardly blame him, because after immediately walking away from Zora in that scenario, I would feel like, hey, I need the rupees.
I mean, if he doesn't find Hammer or Mitts here in the front of Escape, does he leave and go do Zora? Or does he just kill Aga 1 like Mr. Scruff is now?
I think at this point, if you're in the castle, you're committed.
Yeah, that was my thinking, but then I see him farming rupees outside, and I'm not sure anymore. Mr. Scruff, unfortunately, no sword beams and no arrows, has to do spins on these guys.
If you're looking for a fun strat that you can do to help make this a little easier in that scenario, holding sword outstretched against the door that you first enter in, you can get them to come together and get them in a double spin, called... Actually, I don't remember what that... Din-din. Din-din strats. You're ringing up for dinner.
Dinner bell.
Nevertheless, MrScruffNinjaTuna did get through those rooms very efficiently, despite doing different, less conventional strategies. Really didn't have any major difficulties in these first few. Really speaking to some experience climbing this tower. Another thing you'll notice is that he's not clinking on any walls, and none of those guards were alerted until he slashed the last one. That's the ideal way to get through that maid.
Compiling headed down to his last check here in the front of Escape, and we'll see if he's ready to do Aga or not.
Well, I guess one other thing to consider about farming rupees is that there will not be a lot of very easily accessible locations to pull from when you get to the Dark World. So even if you find, just some rupees along the way, getting extra 80 might, push you over the edge.
Oh, the mirror! That's actually fantastic. He'll be able to, whatchamacallit? Check Zora with Catfish. But he's leaving, so never mind. We're going Tower of Hera, boys.
Well, this is a potential divergence, or a potential benefit to one of our runners. MrScruffNinjaTuna will be able to get to the Dark World. We'll have the Pyramid, and as you mentioned, Catfish. We'll be able to go to the Palace of Darkness, but without Hammer potentially locked out of a fair amount of things. At the bare minimum, the boss. So it'd be interesting to see what ends up happening. There's a lot of items between the two different locations.
I mean, it definitely feels like the right thing to do to, go to the Crystal Dungeon. You can full clear. But it is pretty painful to have to walk back to the castle yet again to go do Aga if this ends up not having what you're looking for.
I guess the tough part for me about the decision that compiling's making here, I mean, of course, as you mentioned, Crystal, it's always worth it. But you pretty much got to bank on finding Hammer or Hookshot if you want to continue this chain. Or maybe even Book leading to one of the two on the tablet right next to you. But it's a tough decision to make. We're getting some musical slashes here from MrScruffNinjaTuna.
Yeah, he's having fun.
Slashing to the beat of his own Aga?
He gets hit by the blue ball. I'm really scared he's going to start missing hits. Oh, compiling taking a fall through a hole there. Has to restart.
Yeah, Tower of Hera is the bane of many runners' existence. Not only is the dungeon kind of weird with all of the floors and everything, but if you're trying to avoid enemies, it can be very, very easy to just fall in. And most of those holes are pretty punishing. Some of them drop you two floors. But with that, MrScruffNinjaTuna will be the first into the Dark World. We'll get a map check, our green pendant on Turtle Rock, and we have a pendant on Ice Palace. 6 is at Swamp, and I didn't see 5. I believe it's Tower of Hera or Desert.
It's Hera. So nothing on the pyramid, but that's no big deal. Like, we have the bow. We can get all the way through pod except for the boss.
And knowing what version 31 has felt like lately, personally, I feel like I find Hammer a lot of here. So, there's definitely a chance of that. Catfish could have it. If we don't find Hammer, then it's definitely going to be a double dip for Palace of Darkness, which is painful. But, sometimes you got to do it. I think the worst part about double dipping Palace of Darkness, honestly, is just going through the maze to get there.
Oh yeah, the walk to the dungeon is quite distressful. But if there is,
the dungeon itself,
like, it's probably the Hammer. Hookshot and Mitts are also possibilities, but Hammer definitely most likely.
So we were talking about the decision between the two of them. Compiling hasn't really found anything here in Hera. MrScruffNinjaTuna has the advantage of having lamp, bow, plenty of bombs to work with and plenty to find, and a mirror. Having a mirror for this dungeon is essential. Everything about checking this dungeon becomes so much better.
It just makes it a lot nicer.
So that's going to be crystal number 2 for compiling, taking a brief, at the moment, crystal lead. Does not have any other dungeons that are completable just yet.
Yeah,
but we'll definitely have that advantage.
We're headed to the coffee break.
And sometimes half an hour in, you just need to, refresh yourself a little bit. Take on these tiles. There are many out there who view this as a challenge room. How many different ways can I experience this with every equipment combination? There's got to be at least some unique way to kill these tiles.
So what do you do after this? Assuming Hair Basement has nothing for you, do you just go to Aga then? Or do you make sure it's Aga and go over to Zora?
Well, lacking the rupees, tough, because you know that you're gonna have to do Palace of Darkness afterwards. So if you're gonna farm rupees, you're gonna take 300, not just 200, which is not the best. I mean, that's what, 4 tree pulls.
Well, he has a Houlihan still, as well, and there was nothing in Hair Basement. Scruff, you got the bow. Okay. All right. I don't. Sure.
He was out of arrows.
Yeah, but there was arrows in the pot.
Yeah, there's definitely
So,
arrows
like,
in every mimic room.
He spent 160 rupees to save 5 arrows.
Well, on the bright side, you didn't have to purchase that potion, right?
Yeah. Well, opportunity cost. You might need it later.
And yeah, that's a good point. When you get 2 blue potions from the seed for free, you don't really want to waste any of them. And of course, you're not getting maximum value out of them, as they are full heal for both hearts and magic, no matter how many you have. Whereas like a fairy's 7 hearts every time. So it's a very high value healing item overall.
Compiling has decided to just go to Aga. I assume with the mirror and the gloves, he knows he can just mirror over to Zora.
Now, MrScruffNinjaTuna does have one advantage of doing Palace of Darkness early here, besides getting the mushroom, which is really nice if you're going to go to do catfish. There are rupees you can farm in this dungeon, in the basement, which is really nice, because you're going to check there anyway. Whether he bothers to do so is another story, but I imagine you're going to get at least some of them along the way.
Yeah, you want to have at least 275 leaving this dungeon. So that'll be enough to Houlihan and have enough to buy Zora, which you're probably checking. Oh, nice rupee find. Which you're probably checking after this.
Alright, so compiling's several rupee pulls, or tree pulls, tier 1 rupee, that's hard to say. Tier 1 tree rupee pulls have not been super important just yet, but if it comes down to buying potions, MrScruffNinjaTuna is 1 potion down. And they don't have that much health to work with yet. But then another 300 rupees decides to end that thought. There are only 4 stacks of them in the game.
Yeah, we did not find any progression here in Pod. Except for the mushroom, I guess, which is the next trip.
Well, since it's such a meme in the community about gambling, if we were to liken Palace of Darkness to a casino, MrScruffNinjaTuna has just walked out, actually having beaten the house, doubling up many times over. We'll actually have quite a few rupees, nearly 1,000. And so, yeah, as you mentioned, the Zora play becoming much more appealing now.
Piling getting real close to death there in Circle of Pods. Does manage to pull it out and finds the 2 hearts into the pods.
It speaks to great game knowledge, because a lot of those, you're either checking those pots, in specific orders, say you do an NMG run, or you just know exactly where they are in that room. But finding the arrows there, having that knowledge in the back of your mind really helps out in these races. Well, so as Compiling jumps into the Aghanim fight, which would be a little bit hairy with only 2 hearts, potentially, MrScruffNinjaTuna will be our first mushroom turn-in, which is a simple fetch quest, but it is along the way.
It's also the only thing we found in Palace of Darkness. So if there was ever a fetch quest that was going to give you progression, I think it's going to be this one.
I think it's like IRL canon that mushrooms grow in dark, damp places.
Ah, it's the hookshot! Amazing!
Well, to make an extension on that joke, MrScruffNinjaTuna will have to recoup his his opportunity cost here.
Yeah. So the hookshot does 2 things for us right now. One is East Death Mountain, which we haven't seen yet. But 2, and more likely to be what the game is intending, you can now hookshot across the river to get to Hammerless Thieves Town and Fire Rodless Skull Woods, and eventually Hype Cave.
Yeah, so I mean, this is basically the vast majority of our overworld access in all directions. Of course, that hammer is essential, but since we have the Aghanim portal, we can still get to the east side, so it's really more of a matter of accessing dungeons, completing overworld checks, and MrScruffNinjaTuna will be walking away from that big 20. I don't think we need any more cash here. Big props to compiling for a damageless Aghanim fight, which is sometimes harder to do than it seems. And we'll be able to go to Palace of Darkness to presumably get that mushroom. Well, we've been waiting about half an hour now to find out what our favorite aquatic friend will have for us for just the low price of 500 rupees. What's it gonna be?
Sweet. Three bombs, exactly what you wanted.
Those aquatic subsidies are really driving up the price of blueberries these days. So 3 bombs, not rewarded.
Has like a really high property tax on aquatic waterfront.
You know, it's just not possible to start a kingdom anywhere in Hyrule. Even getting a domain name, very pricey.
A little surprised Mr. Scruff is doing this instead of going to the mountain first. Like I said before, I think this is the more likely intended use of the hookshot, but the mountain's pretty free for those Paradox and Spiral Cave items, and you just might find something good there.
And this is another one of those kind of like tough decisions, because if you are getting something really important on the west side of, you know, the Dark World, say like Hammer or maybe Canis Samaria or maybe even Boots or Flippers, those items, you know, really feel bad to leave behind for a long period of time. And let's just say you get, you know, Titan's Mitts, that gives you so much more mountain. So perhaps MrScruffNinjaTuna is considering that. We'll definitely get the Graveyard Ledge, which is an oftentimes missed location in a lot of routing.
Yeah, it's in most seeds it is very difficult to route this in and have it not feel like a horrible thing to do. It doesn't feel so bad in this situation where we're coming across it with the mirror anyway.
Starting to notice a trend of weird locations having just bombs. But on the bright side, MrScruffNinjaTuna does not have to worry about this spot anymore, no longer has to carry Dark World access all the way over to the graveyard, can just get the remaining two, or I guess the remaining 2 locations if you include Bonk Rocks, without having it have a portal.
There's at least one world where he has to come back, though, in the Dark World. Like Boots locking Mitts in Kingstone.
Yeah, that is a scenario. And of course, the Boots are kind of a big open question for those locations that we won't be able to answer potentially for a while. Our Bumper Cave is useless. Thankfully, we didn't need that for Aghanim. And we don't got to worry about that item either. Now, as you mentioned before, you know, the mountain's open, and it's pretty hard to fathom that compiling won't get the hookshot in this sequence. But those locations that MrScruffNinjaTuna just checked will be awkward to do if compiling does go up to the mountain. I suppose if we don't find the hammer somewhere in this sequence, compiling will likely have to circle around using the hookshot anyway.
Yeah, I guess I'm not following. Why would going to the mountain make it harder to go to Graveyard Ledge?
Because you wouldn't be naturally going through the Aghanim portal if you, say, found your Dark World, or if you found, like...
You mean if he goes to the mountain and finds something up there, right.
Yeah, instead of going directly around the world from the portal.
The bonus of that, though, is that in that situation, you found progression on the mountain. So, like, who cares about Graveyard Ledge anymore?
Yeah, good point. And so there's a couple of locations that both of our runners have pretty much purposely avoided or potentially will, that could be eating away at the back of their minds. As of course we saw earlier in the race, MrScruffNinjaTuna forgot Ice Rod Cave. Wasn't important, but we might see a return trip later. Alright, Skullwood's time for MrScruffNinjaTuna as compiling is finishing up Palace of Darkness that is accessible.
Not sure why he dropped in the hole, though. Cute. I think that was the fire rod.
Yes, it was.
Like,
what a
it's hard
great
for us
place.
to tell on the restream.
Yeah, finding Fire Rod there and a key in that order, probably the most ideal scenario here. But as you raised a good point, though, is that routing in Skullwoods has changed a lot over the last couple of versions, because in version 31, the developers reintroduced this location here in the Spike Room as being an item location instead of a guaranteed key, which can force you to save and quit in some scenarios. MrScruffNinjaTuna has plenty of keys to work with, and will not have to face that, fortunately.
Yeah, I was just wondering why he dropped down the hole instead of just going in the front, since he has the mirror. Like, with the mirror, like, you can just go either way and then mirror right back to the front of the dungeon.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very risky decision to make.
And now, in this situation, he has to hookshot back across and everything. And he had to do, like, the whole circle all the way around. It's just a little bit slower. It's not a big deal, though.
All things considered, though, MrScruffNinjaTuna has quite a lot of an advantage for checking the west side of the Dark World. We'll have a lot of this done, and probably will kill the boss.
It's definitely going to be a rougher fight, though. Like, his max heart count is only 6, and he doesn't even have all 6 of them right now. He does have that blue potion, though, so I'm sure he won't have too much trouble.
And he did buy another potion, I believe.
Oh, does he have 2 potions now? That's cool.
Yeah, when he turned in the mushroom. So yeah, I mean, there's less money, but, you know, we don't need it anyway. Although I guess between chess game, digging game, depending on your digs, plus potentially needing more potions, we don't have a lot of health to work with. Maybe rupees would be still relevant. I mean, hey, if we get the boots and you can't find health, I guess you could probably pick up Blue Mill.
Oh, where was that?
At least I think it was the Lumberjack Cave, yeah.
Right.
I'm not sure if we ever actually got confirmation on that. You saw it?
I'm pretty sure I saw it after somebody said it, but before somebody mentioned it, I couldn't remember at all. It's not progression. Oh, very sick fight, though.
Yeah, the best part about what MrScruffNinjaTuna did there is the timing of those fire rod shots, unsticking Mothula from the wall. If you were to knock Mothula into those spikes, it negates all damage, so keeping him away from the corners and the sides and doing the fight quickly is very essential to surviving with low percent. Really impressive fight overall.
Yeah, Mothula was being very friendly with his movements there. Sometimes, like, you hit him with the fire rod, he goes up against the spikes, and then he just moves left and right across the spikes for like 20 minutes. And there's nothing you could do about it.
Well, if I were in his shoes, I'd be feeling very confident right now, regardless of any decisions made. That's a great way to be exiting this area and moving into Thieves Town. Compiling potentially feeling very different after having spent 500 rupees, but on the bright side, got it all in one chain.
Mr. Scruff realized he forgot something. We've only seen one item in this dungeon so far, and Mothula didn't drop anything.
Good news is we didn't get that far away. Would be much more painful to remember later.
That can be important, maybe. Ether Medallion in the back of Skullwoods, locked behind our fire rod, which we found in the front of Skullwoods.
Well, so we're at a coin flip of a chance of one of our dungeons being required. Well, I guess Green Pendant could have a important item or something in Turtle Rock, but required for crystals. Only one of our two dungeons could necessarily require that ether. Still, with 33% chance odds, I would still not want to take them. I would much rather just have the ether myself.
Oh, the hammer was in Paradox. Okay, this that's bad for Mr. Scruff, honestly.
Yeah, because I mean, you gotta commit to doing this, and if you're already in the area of Thieves Town, now maybe he'll dip out of Thieves Town after the first 4 if he does go in. But without that hammer, that's a really bad feeling.
Or the mitts. So like the thing with Thieves Town in this situation is like normally you see people they like, oh, just first 4, I'll come back later with the hammer. It's no big deal. But in this situation, for him to come back to Thieves Town, he has to start at the Aga portal, go up to the river, hookshot across, walk all the way across the graveyard, and then come down to Thieves Town. It is a very, very, very long trip. So with blind being a crystal, I feel like you just gamble it. And if you do that and there was something in the big chest, you're not coming back for a long time.
Yeah, the saving grace in that scenario is finding those Titan's Myths somewhere in this chain or even in Thieves Town itself. Naturally, like many players, MrScruffNinjaTuna is going to at least check the other Village of Outcast locations before jumping in. Will not find that hammer, unfortunately.
On the plus side, finding the hammer means that compiling will have a much easier time getting to Village of Outcasts, and it makes dipping the front of Skull Woods less desirable because you can enter the Dark World from multiple locations now. So maybe finding the hammer means he doesn't find the fire up.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you would have more incentive to go towards Mini Moldorm Cave. Or not Mini Moldorm Cave, Hype Cave, I'm sorry. But yeah, Swamp is almost accessible if you find flippers somewhere along the path. I mean, there's more reason to go in that direction than you would have otherwise.
And he is starting at Hype Cave, like you were mentioning.
So, folks, if you're tuning in here 45, 46 minutes into the race and you were looking for an update, maybe calling out somebody in chat, our two runners have done a little bit of divergence, a couple of orphan locations early on in the game, Ice Rod Cave, a couple of things with Zora and Lack of Rupees. No major changes there, but when we got to the mountain, we found a hammer just recently from compiling side. MrScruffNinjaTuna has been taking a lot of distant, isolated checks, which may end up being costly as compiling has a decided knowledge advantage at the moment.
And Scruff is going to the back of Thieves Town. He's going to get Crystal Blind. I wasn't counting items. Do we have any idea?
I may not have been, but we'll probably see at least one pause here. And of course, if you see a small key on Blind himself, then you don't got to worry about that hammer chest, thankfully.
Blind can't drop a small key.
I'm mixing something up with that.
Yeah, I'm confused too.
Please forgive me, folks. It is early in the morning.
So if we don't find the small key at all, then that means the small key was in the big chest. We don't have to worry about it. I think that's what you were going for.
That is exactly what I meant to say. Perhaps not alert enough or intelligent enough to say it right, but hey, at least we got 2 people on the mic to cover for that. But MrScruffNinjaTuna is definitely getting all of the items available here. We'll get a nice health refill out of the chest right before the hole that opens up for Blind, and we'll go all the way through. Still no sign of that small key yet, so there's still a chance. Although I have to think that the anxiety in this dungeon, in MrScruffNinjaTuna's situation, has got to be paramount.
I don't know. I think he's feeling pretty good right now. He found the fire rod in a very disgusting place.
And given that he doesn't know what's on the mountain just yet, may feel like compiling might have followed the same route. But maybe consider the east town first. I mean, so there's got a lot of scenarios potentially where it might seem, reasonable.
And the small key is in the big chest. Mr. Scruff will not be absolutely wrecked by this lack of hammer. This is amazing news.
So next steps for MrScruffNinjaTuna are very straightforward, as we've seen all of Northern Dark World has been taken care of that can be accessed. And then, provided that this fight goes well, gonna head directly south and take care of everything along that path that we can. A very good looking blind script so far. The first two phases done flawlessly. The third one a little bit tougher and on the right side kind of harder to pull off, but we'll manage to pull it out.
I predict Magic Bat will give us the mitts. You ready? Here it comes.
That would be gross.
Oh, it was so close.
Though, I mean, gloves of a type, right?
I knew it had to be progression. I just was hoping it was the mitts.
If the shoe fits. See, if I'm not getting the information right, I gotta be the funny guy, and I'm falling a little bit flat here. I'm just wading my way through this stuff.
Everybody's laughing. I just don't hold down my push to talk so as not to annoy people.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Just pretend I'm laughing.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So yeah, we knew Magic Bat had to have progression because we've seen everything else. Our runners haven't, though. It's kind of the benefit of having our runners going in opposite directions.
So one tough thing for MrScruffNinjaTuna is having not done Tower of Hera, compiling when he does his route through the Dark World will actually have Pyramid Fairy access after Swamp Palace, and at the most opportune moment.
No, Scruff will have that, for sure. Because he has to go get the hammer anyway. So you do Hera while you're up there.
No, I know that, but like it... Oh yeah, to get to Swamp Palace. But I mean, compiling will be able to do it considerably earlier. Although it remains to be seen, that's potentially a low number of locations to be checking.
Neither route is really showing itself as a superior option, because like getting the hammer first didn't really help anything that much, and not getting it didn't really hurt anything. As long as compiling goes into the front of Skullheads. If he doesn't, then that's bad. But what'll happen here is Mr. Scruff goes all the way to Hype Cave, he doesn't get anything, and he's like, oh, fine, I'll go to the mountain. And then while he's up there, he finds the hammer, then he goes over and does Hera, and the only thing left for him to do is Flipper checks and Swamp.
So I'm guessing, based on what we've seen so far, Swamp is a very likely place to find mitts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's like greater than 90% chance right now.
Although, we do have... Oh, if it weren't for the rock outside of Ice Palace, that would be the one thing. That would be the most gross thing, but thankfully we are locked out of that.
There could be something else in there.
What, you're saying it's a nice dungeon?
I like Ice Palace, yes. It's nice.
The Rod of Destiny wouldn't be there?
Well, it's it's pendant to the rock, so.
I'm trying to fathom a scenario in which
Kane.
maybe Boots would be behind this. That there is a very small sliver of a chance that that could ruin our day. But that's a doomsday scenario for probably some other seed. As of right now, though, as you mentioned, we have a short list of items that we're really looking for. Turtle Rock being a pendant, almost a certainty that that's not going to be part of the equation. But Cane of Samaria, definitely something on the table that we're looking for.
The only other thing that I see right now that might end up having our progression, and rather than Swamp, is Spike Cave. Unfortunately, like with the way Mr. Scruff's routing the mountain, he's going to go up Paradox Cave where he finds the hammer, and then he has to make a choice. Okay, am I going to do Spike Cave or am I going to do Spiral Cave? Now, you can't do both. It's just really, really, really slow.
Yeah, I don't think really anybody that plays this game enjoys at all walking through that cave.
I think it should be a pretty easy choice for him. He doesn't have a ton of hearts, and he does not have the Cane of Berna, although I don't remember where that was. Maybe it was Paradox. Where was Cane of Berna? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's really not coming to mind. This seems like the likely spot.
Oh, it's in Hera. Okay. Thank you.
Well, there was a blue item here. Not the one we were thinking of. So with blue mail, it's kind of nice to not have to worry as much about your damage when you only have 9 and 11 hearts, respectively.
Yeah, blue mail is basically like perma invincibility in Link to the Past. It's not. It's just like when you're speedrunning the game, like you're pretty much used to having like very few hearts on green mail, like the entire game. The hardest stuff in the game, you have like 6 hearts in green mail. So when you play rando and you find the blue mail, you feel pretty invincible.
Although it certainly feels like 2 different worlds when you're doing an NMG run. Of course, you can still get a red mail upgrade, but you would almost never in any fathomable situation ever have blue mail in that scenario. Blue mail, of course, for those who don't know, halves your damage, and then red mail quarters it. Well, as MrScruffNinjaTuna starts to do the Tower of Hera climb, Compiling will be walking up on the blind fight here shortly. Pretty straightforward script to work with, and has sword beams to work with for a potentially even more optimal third phase, although I don't think that's going to be a factor here anyway.
Oh, I just realized MrScruff didn't do Magic Bat. I guess I just kind of assumed he did because he had the mirror. Huh. Well, he's going to have to do that for flippers.
The good news is that it will be a very small list of locations to check. As you mentioned before, this hammer is great, it's helpful, but it's not really doing a lot yet.
Yeah, it doesn't look very much at all by itself. It's like just Spike Cave right now.
Really, one of the benefits of having an Aghanim seed is, you don't got to worry about that stuff. Although, Helmasaur King became available.
Oh, he couldn't do Magic Bat because he didn't have the hammer yet. Right. Wait, Helmasaur? Did he have an item?
Honestly, I don't recall. Well, we only found Mushroom in there, didn't we? We found like 2 sets of 300 rupees.
Oh no, I think he had like Map or Compass because Mr. Scruff like mirrored before getting the big chest.
Yeah,
so he must have reasoned out that Map and Compass were in the big chest and the boss. Compiling frame ruling the verb.
This is unfortunate.
It's super
As it turns
annoying.
out, collision sometimes doesn't work.
My understanding is like the game only checks for like I don't know the words, when things are touching every 4 frames. So the bird moves fast enough when you're moving the opposite direction that it can actually pass through you in less than that time. And if it lines up just right, you don't get picked up.
That's basically exactly right. It's the same principle that applies to dashing, and basically, like if you see a key dash where you dash into the door and you open it on the same frame, it's because Link moves every frame he moves 4 pixels while dashing, and if you align on the 4-pixel grid, you'll open it and not stop your dash to bonk. So yeah, just lining up.
Yeah, Compiling did not go to front of Skullwoods, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to have gone to front of Skullwoods at that point, since he knew he had Swamp to full clear. But it's really difficult to decide to go to front of Skullwoods after you've already not done it, and the Fire Rod is the only thing that would drive him in that direction, which we know is in Skullwoods. On the plus side, there's...
yeah,
Oh,
you're an idiot.
Yeah, it's not important yet. There's probably progression here in Swamp, but the more things he unlocks, the less likely he is to go to Skull Woods.
Yeah, so I guess it could end up being a scenario where compiling will chase after every lead before going to Skull Woods. Although, the possibility of finding the one thing you need, I guess this is one of those scenarios where a lot of runners find themselves in, where they're approaching their go mode, they know, which items they need, which order is going to make the most sense, and I'm hoping, like most runners, compiling will try to play to the scenario that's going to benefit them the most, which would be going into Skull Woods to get that Fire Rod. It's just an unlikely scenario in most people's minds.
Okay, so Mr. Scruff finishes Hera, and he had to make a choice. I can either do Spike Cave or Spiral Cave or both. If he does both, he's doing Spiral Cave first, so we're not sure which he's chosen yet. But he's definitely not going to skip Spiral. He switched to Flute. That tells me nothing.
Yeah, I mean, would you go to... I guess you go back to the left side to... I don't know, would you just take Paradox Cave up, or would you flute to the left? And I feel like the mirror transition's slower.
I would have orphaned Spiral Cave, honestly.
Well, this is added time for compiling to potentially find things here in Swamp Palace. Quite a few locations here. MrScruffNinjaTuna slashing many times here in this cave, and I think we all feel it on that one.
I think if he wants to do Spike Cave, it would have been faster to flute back over than climb on the left side, like you were saying, though. But he's not doing that. He's going straight to Magic Bat. This is good news. Gets him his flippers.
Flipper's giving us access, of course, to Swamp Palace, and then immediately after, if he wishes to, Pyramid Fairy, if we want to go that route, would be a potential route to maybe finding Canis Samaria if it's not here in Swamp Palace, or even Titan's Mitts.
The Titan's Meds in Swamp Palace. Who could have predicted such a situation?
Yeah, we've certainly narrowed down Hyrule pretty quickly here.
This scene is super linear so far.
Alright, well, that's our access to Ice Palace.
It's like linear but not linear, because they both went in like opposite directions, right? But they end up doing the exact same things because neither direction had anything. And it all just culminates in this one bottleneck here in Swamp.
So I feel like the smart play for compiling after this is, I mean, maybe considering the Pyramid Fairy, but also the possibility of Mire area.
Yeah, it's pretty standard, like, after you get the Flute and Mitts to just fly over there and see what you can see. Especially since he doesn't have Ether yet, he'll want to know what medallion is there and whether or not he is one item from go mode or two.
Well, before getting there, compiling will have to defeat Argus here with the Master Sword. Not a very fun fight for most people to do. Even if it's not exceptionally difficult, it's still very arduous and slow.
The double pulls do speed it up quite a bit, but it can be a little challenging to get those consistently, especially from the left and right directions. Horizontal, that's the one.
We'll opt for sword spins to close out the fight. 4 of those should do it.
And
well, that'll bring us to even crystals.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, too. We both have 4 crystals. Different 4 crystals, though.
I'm just going to say that your great thoughts are wearing off on me. That's clearly why we're thinking on the same wavelength. I started this broadcast fumbling my words. I continue to fumble my words, and you're still keeping me here, so I appreciate that.
Fumbling words is like 90% of my job.
Well, thankfully for both of these runners, they're not fumbling their logic, both remembering exactly where they can go. It could definitely be a very frustrating situation if any of these like very critical linear locations have been forgotten. Compiling not losing out on any opportunities here will take that big bomb, and thanks to defeating Aghanim, we have like the best possible sequence to get it there.
Yeah, this is like the one nice thing about killing Aga.
What, you don't like the Zelda disappearing cutscene?
Oh, no, I don't. No, I just think of Aga as like being all the worst things in the game. Like, not only does it take like 5 whole minutes to do the whole tower, but then once you do it, like all the enemies on the light world are replaced with like super annoying Usain Bolts and stuff.
But he does the Gandalf thing, you know? Look, you gotta find little things in life to be excited about, Koi.
I'm looking.
Well, difference of opinions on Aghanim aside, compiling not getting a lot from that. On to the Mire area.
Not checking the medallion, okay. You can do it on the way out.
May have been terrified at that bird.
Oh my goodness, what a jet seed. That's no mode. And now it's go mode. Or, well, no, he still needs fire rod, right?
Correct. That is the only missing component of this, and basically will find it if he goes to Skullwoods next.
Yeah, but why would he? There's no way he goes to Skullwoods anytime soon.
I mean, it'd be a very gutsy decision to make, but I mean, if you're looking at like, hey, I'm an hour and 5 minutes into this, you know, at the end of Mire, you might be like, well, I guess you're gonna check all of Mire until you get the 2 items. And it doesn't feel that weird to get a fire rod in Mire.
No, like leaving Mire, he has like all of Dark Death Mountain he can do with the hook shot. That's pretty dense location. He needs to go back and kill Helmasaur. Ice Palace is full clearable. He might even like dip his head into Turtle Rock. There's just so much he can do right now that isn't going to Skullwoods. I mean, I'm definitely not calling it yet because anything can happen. Like, there's still the possibility that boots end up being required for GT. But right now, Mr. Scruff has this.
Yeah, it's a hard situation to read because, I mean, you got to think of how much, like, is running through Compiling's head right now. Jokes aside, he's probably compiling many different routes that you can go. I mean, there's, as you mentioned, all of those different locations.
And then make the joke. It doesn't work. That's
well, I mean, it's still applicable, though.
It's cheating.
Computing all of the different solutions
okay.
that we could be firing through to try and get to the end of this. And I mean, the max benefit, situation of Skullwoods having it is, as you mentioned, very long odds in this scenario, considering how many locations are checkable. But I don't think it's completely out of question that someone might attempt it, given that, that would be the one thing. It's the go mode scenario, you know what I mean? And we've seen a lot of runners win lopsided scenarios because of that.
I mean, if you feel like neurotic enough, you might go like, well, Skullwoods is the worst place it could be, so I'll just go there first. Like people do stuff like that all the time.
But I fully agree with you though that it's very unlikely. It's a
oh my god,
would have to be a saving throw scenario. Wow.
Okay, now we're for sure in no mode.
Wait, so MrScruffNinjaTuna just went back in for that?
Yeah, he's doing left side long.
Left side. Now that's something that really tilts things in his favor. To add on top of what's already ailing compiling through the, openness of the remaining game world, not having a boots advantage is really rough when you've got a lot of late game execution ahead.
Well, it's too late in the seat, though. Like, this is definitely a time loss if boots aren't required. Like, for instance, if this was a spoiler log race, you would not have picked up boots.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Not
Well,
unless
rather-
you were doing this really early.
I guess the big key was in the back. You probably pick up boots, but you would have not done left side at least.
But so, I mean, I think the one big advantage that's potential for the boots is, well, obviously big key if it was Gan's Tower, for example, could be on Torch, but more importantly, Gan's Tower execution. Heavily boots dependent if you're trying to be very fast. So, I mean, there is time to save, but I mean, I don't think the risk of a death is really a concern here.
Oh yeah, no, boots definitely make you go faster. I'm just saying, like, there's not enough game left to make up for doing left side swamp with just the boots.
I guess it depends mostly on the runner. There are definitely people out there who would have trouble with rooms bootsless, or at least comparatively speaking for total time spent. Because, I mean, I agree with you on surface level that, like, top level execution, that would not be enough. The question is, any potential gaffes are going to be more costly if compiling has any issues in any rooms.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so concerned for compiling. Like, Mr. Scruff's not in go mode yet. He still has to go to the mire area. It's just, he's gonna go to the mire area soon.
I honestly think the more painful thing is not being able to spooky action glitch, or to be able to do the boots backup setup.
Yeah. So, go to the mire area actually doesn't look that great for Mr. Scruff, because he doesn't have the cane to enter mire, and he has all 3 medallions, so he doesn't even need the info. And Desert's a pendant. So we might see him like do like Dark Death Mountain first, just because it's like super dense. But it's not going to take that many checks before let's go see what's in Mire Shed. Seems like a good idea.
Yeah, that's true, and it's so easy to get to, so fast to get to. We've had food forever. Titan's Mitts not that long ago.
That's right, you bought 2 potions, buddy. Looks like we're gonna go finish off Pod while we're here.
We have a pretty important fight here for compiling Master Sword D-boost strats. Not incredibly difficult to do, but if you take direct hits from the eyeballs or from Vitreous's lightning, it's certainly a lot more damage. Has plenty of arrows to work with, just would have been only save 8 to do the main eyeball. 3 arrows could kill any of those eyeballs, so opting to save a fair number of these arrows, and with 2 hearts, we'll be able to pull this off.
Oh, Scruff isn't going back to Pod. There's no way you do Ice Palace. Come on. No way you do Ice Palace. Okay, checking the island. Hasn't seen that yet. Makes sense. Nifty Bloomerang.
I cannot fault MrScruffNinjaTuna for the best taste.
Oh, he hasn't done Waterfall Fairy yet. Okay, this makes more sense. I mean, he does have the option to go to Ice Palace. He can full clear it, and it might have what he's looking for. I mean, we know it doesn't, but he doesn't.
And I guess the other added benefit of that is if you're really trying to read into the insight of like key logic within a dungeon, you can sort of figure out in the back of your mind, like, these are the keys I'm getting. Is Canis Samaria logically required for this? And you can maybe try to make some abstractions from that. But as you mentioned, not doing Ice Palace now, certainly on the table, but MrScruffNinjaTuna will be all about Death Mountain.
Yeah, like I was saying before, this looks more appealing from his point of view because he does have all 3 medallions anyway, so he doesn't even need the info.
Yeah, and of course, there's always the scenario of something like, a Godmire, if you have the Canis Samaria walking in. Well, we'll see some minor conversions with some silver arrows for both runners.
Yeah, definitely a nice find for Scruff. Less nice for compiling, but still nice.
I think it's kind of irritating in compiling situation to
Right.
find silvers immediately after Vitreous. Although to compiling's credit, it was a good fight against Vitreous.
Yeah, he did well for sure. Alright, does compiling open up TR? Yup. Oh, maybe it's ether. Nope, he can open it. That's bad.
Well, on the bright side, without Fire Rod, there's a somewhat low chance that compiling will be able to even go any further. Would require a specific key layout.
If there's even just one small key in the first chest, this is the worst thing that has ever happened. I mean, this play makes sense. Like, it's definitely not wrong for him to do this. It's just really unfortunate.
Well, we spoke of the Spike Cave a while ago. I'm finally going to get to see it from MrScruffNinjaTuna while compiling's dungeon diving into Turtle Rock. And we'll find out from both of them how this scenario looks.
It's kind of nice for Scruff because he did choose to orphan this earlier, and it's always nice when you orphan something to get the nice entry to it later. Alright, not a small key. Not a small key. Not a small key! It's a small key.
Well, when it rains, it pours. Compiling will not be backing out of this scenario when you get that small key. You keep going, particularly when you think you are missing a Fire Rod in this dungeon.
Oh yeah, you can't leave. There's no way. You go until you can't go anymore. So hopefully the Chain Chomp chest isn't also a small key.
Yeah, and the Firelock side, of course, is 2 chests. So, I mean, decent chance of this not being a small key. We'll find out here in just a moment.
Oh no. Okay, it can still be worse though, alright? As long as the big key isn't vanilla.
Well, compiling is soldiering on through the rest of this dungeon. You know, I mean, it's got to be the weirdest thing, because, I mean, I imagine when compiling is watching this back later, you know, looking at what we know compared to what you're feeling in this moment. I mean, compiling is an hour and 16 in, only missing 2 crystals, potentially about to find the item that gets, you know, that last crystal requirement. Probably feeling very different than what we're feeling as a crowd.
Alright, not the big key, not the big key, not the big key. Oh, thank God. Alright, no laser bridge, you guys. Just Mimic Cave. And Mr. Scruff has finally run out of nice stuff and is heading to something slightly less nice, where he will find his go mode.
And all it took was an hour 17. MrScruffNinjaTuna ready to complete the seed. Just needs to finish up a couple more crystals, and we'll have the Gens Tower climb ahead of him.
That was the most. That was the hairiest double pokey room I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely not a fun dungeon to have Master Sword in, and that room in particular, a great reason why. 16 different RNG.
I wonder if he just didn't consider using bombos, because that would have been way more efficient.
May even be a little bit of sunk cost fallacy. You know, once you're committed to doing combat in that room instead, you don't really want to change course. You know, because then you're doubling on to the time loss. Of course, it ends up oftentimes losing more time to not do so. But I personally feel like, if I'm in that scenario, I just kill them, whichever way I got to do it. But you're right though, Bombos does save time if you have a low quip.
And he finds the book
no.
in Mimic Cave. So if you're compiling and you go all the way through Fire Rodless Turtle Rock and you find the book in Mimic Cave, you don't feel bad. You feel good, right? It's like, oh, this is totally going to lead to the Fire Rod. There's no way anyone else would ever do these checks. I'm a genius. Unfortunately, this is not going to be what he's looking for.
There just isn't a sequence where any time save would surmount this. But, I mean, you're right, though. Until you find out that it's absolutely not the route, this feels perfect. Can we call this Rando's Dilemma?
I feel real bad about this seed, though, because it's not like compiling made the wrong decisions or made bad gambles or anything. All that happened here is he went to the mountain first, and MrScruff didn't. And having the hammer or not having the hammer completely changes how Front of Skullwood looks to you.
Yeah, I mean, this logic chain almost kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You look at it from one angle and nice and great. You look at it from the other angle, it's awful. But, I mean, at the end, it plays out the way it does.
He found the ice rod on Ether Tablet. Oh, that's just insult to injury, man.
To compiling's credit, not just immediately heading back in excitement, rage, frustration, whatever it is that compiling's feeling now. We'll have to ask her in the interview. But remembering Spike Cave, having the temerity to not forget that in this scenario, even if it's not going to pay out, still smart. I mean, I guess it kind of paid out.
So I think Smith sequence probably our next visit. Now he hasn't done Gregor Ledge, so that might be what might draw him back into Skullwoods eventually. But after you make this huge dive into Turtle Rock and all you got was the book, you want to follow the book. I think that just makes the most sense right now. So Smith sequence into Bombo's tablet.
One would hope that the ice rod would be a significant enough distraction to say, hey, you know what? Don't do it. Don't follow this. The instructions might be printed in text, but just don't read it. Unfortunately, the game is not that helpful. The game finds ways to confuse and, or even, yeah, like, because you can't fault him for this. There's no way that you can just, see your way out of this scenario. Well, silver arrows proving their worth, the equivalent of 100 fighter sword slashes per them, or per arrow, absolutely demolishing all of the eyeballs, the vitreous, the boss itself.
Wait, but the fighter sword doesn't hurt vitreous.
No, I'm talking about like damage tables. The silver arrows are roughly 100 damage. If you were to call the fighter sword 1 damage, the silvers would be 100.
Except for pokies, because they're broken.
That is absolutely true. So, kind of funny to find the tempered sword on the blacksmith, unless we had some catastrophe with Master Sword Ganon, or no sword upgrade in Ganon's Tower. Probably not the most important thing at this point, but still, nice quality of life if you're going to be checking this stuff anyway.
Yeah, definitely a nice little thing to find. It's just... he can't come back, there's no way.
Well, here we are with the final crystal dungeon for MrScruffNinjaTuna, who has turned out to run away with this, despite the closeness of the race overall, leading up into those decisions with Skull Woods. Compiling will finish off, as you mentioned before, the book check alongside this purple chest. We'll get to find out what those were, which we were not going to find out otherwise, unfortunately. But compiling not giving up in this scenario, going to try every last possible opportunity. Before what would, as we've already discussed a couple of times, would seem like a ridiculous place to find the fire rod. You know, 50 rupees to bring your purple chest to you. The shipping rates here in Hyrule are absolutely absurd. Must be that Christmas season, you know, surge pricing.
And just half magic from Bravo Stava. Okay, now, this is the moment compiling realizes something went wrong. Because he just realized that entire trip through Turtle Rock and everything he did since then was completely nothing.
Now, going to Palace of Darkness here, I totally get this, because, like, you want some time to think through what just went down, and you know you have to do this anyway. You have everything you need to finish the crystal. So this is an opportunity to kind of review mentally what you were doing in the seed. Totally understand what compiling is doing right here.
Yeah, his options following Pod are pretty thin, but they're still options. Pendant Ice Palace, Pendant Desert, Left Side Swamp he chose to skip, as well as the front of Skullwoods and Great Red Ledge.
Well, Desert's pretty quick. Between that, I would guess probably Skullwoods first, but one of those two seems like the most likely to me. Well, with that, MrScruffNinjaTuna absolutely melting Helmasaur King with the best equipment possible, pretty much, besides a better sword. We'll be heading up to Gen's Tower, so it's about that time we play a guessing game here in these speed gaming channels, don't we, Koi?
I know about it. I've been instructed.
Well, for the uninitiated out there, there are a number of item locations in which you can find the big key in Gen's Tower. 22 of them, in fact. And we like to guess where we think we're going to find those, find that big key. Get your guesses in chat before MrScruffNinjaTuna enters the dungeon, and you can be entered into our leaderboard if you happen to guess it right, or the first one to do so.
Oh, I thought it was broken.
You know, you might be right about that. I haven't checked in on that. Either way, we're going to play it for posterity today. Koi, where do you think we're going to find it?
22.
22 would extend this as much as possible. I'm expecting number 3 today. And of course, this game, no matter what the real answer is, chat wins.
I feel so bad about this race. Like I'm having trouble watching the restream because like I look at the stream and I feel shame. I feel ashamed that we're just watching compiling get completely randoed.
You know what, though? I mean, I think everybody in chat can give compiling a boost of confidence, a root in his favor, because honestly, to be able to go through, you know, game 1 of a series like this, you got game 2 ahead, and potentially game 3 if compiling can turn this around. Definitely going to need chat support for that going into the next race, as you mentioned, there's really no better way to describe this than being absolutely rando. There's no, you know, poor gameplay, there's no poor decision making, just accidentally wrong decision making, and it just happens to everyone. But I have faith that compiling will make this an interesting series in game 2, and hopefully, for the sake of more of us watching more rando, turn into a game 3.
Yeah, that's the silver lining. Yeah, that is the silver lining. This is just one match, and this is out of a best of 3. Nothing has been decided by this one seed. I just gotta shake it off and move on.
Now, of course, MrScruffNinjaTuna does still need to come.
My Discord DC, can you hear me?
Sorry, what was it?
Alright, my Discord like disconnected or something. I'm
Are
back.
you?
It's all
A
good.
little bit faint, but I can hear you.
And there's the big key in Dark Magician's room.
But so, looking forward to the rest of the series, presuming that MrScruffNinjaTuna does finish this out, compiling will have a choice to make. For those of you who haven't been following the tournament, if this is your first match that you've watched, all of the group stages matches are being done best of 3 between each entrant, and it's a double elimination groups format, so 2 out of every 4 in each group will advance, winners and losers finals. This is the losers round 1, so compiling already faced off against Gamachu. MrScruffNinja lost to Relkin, so compiling needs to win the series to go face off against Relkin. And so game 2 of the series, the loser of the race 1 will be able to change 1 setting within a pool. It'll be very interesting to see which one compiling chooses to change, presuming the race ends as we see it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like there's lots of different like thought processes. Some of them involving like, well, can I sequence break Molar 2 or not? In which case 6/6 becomes like a really strong option if your opponent can't. But then like fast cannon is like a counter to that, and then fast cannon is also a really nice option if you feel like you're if you're not favored execution wise, because it cuts out a huge chunk of the game that's nothing but execution.
We have seen a few people choose map and compass shuffle, which has been another interesting change to the logic role, I suppose, being that maps and compasses can be anywhere. You could potentially have more items in dungeon.
I see that as like a really weird option to pick because it does add a lot more variance to the seed finishing out. Because you don't always even have the information of what you need to finish the seed, like where are the pendants, where are the crystals.
Yeah, and then of course there is a little more commonly seen option, assured swords, which is a change from randomized swords. You would start the game with a sword. An advantage to some people, a disadvantage to others. I guess it depends on how you approach the game weaponless and how good you are at those strats. But all in all, the choices available to compiling will be interesting, and we'll see if compiling is able to turn a strategic advantage into a victory in game 2. I'm excited to see that matchup.
Yeah, these guys are super evenly matched. Like, this really could have gone either way. Right up until the Fire Rod was in Skullheads.
And that's a good point. It's really the story of this race. Up until that moment, they were trading leads several times, both of them making decisions and recovering from decisions that were time costly, time saving, routing heads up, moments. And even despite that, I have good faith that compiling will be able to keep a cool head about this and really prepare themselves for game 2. As they'll be fighting for their tournament life in game 2. MrScruffNinjaTuna approaching the top of the tower will not stop to powder fairies. Yeah, we'll stop. Okay, it's a little safer.
Weird. I think he just forgot about it and was like, "Oh yeah, powdering. That's a thing I can do."
Powder, the best safety. If you do an NMG, don't drop it until you absolutely have no other way to save time. If you're not 135.
I did. I remember when I first started learning it, I was like, well, I mean, I don't need safeties. I'm really good at the game, right? No, it was a bad idea. But
how many cold stare deaths does it take, right?
I did start picking up mushroom, not turning into powder, and then you can just fake powder in GT.
And I think that's one of the really great strengths about A Link to the Past is in terms of game design. You know, powder maybe when I grew up it was an obscure item use. I didn't even realize you could powder anti-fairies, but they're so ubiquitous throughout the game. You can find them in so many dungeons, and it's such an awesome healing item. 7 hearts at any given moment. To be able to do that on command, absolutely awesome part of the game design.
Gosh, Moldorm 2 just has Mr. Scruff Ninja Tuna's number. He gave up on the Master Sword and switched over to Hammer, and he's not having much more success.
Well, with Moldorm 2, or not Moldorm 2, Moldorm in general, I guess it's a comfort level thing. While I personally enjoy using the hammer, and it is a much harder hitbox to hit with. And I guess how well you know Moldorm's pattern is also implicated as well. If you're not able to respond very well to sudden changes, then you know your sword spins are going to be much safer.
It's much different on Moldorm 2 than Moldorm 1 as well. Just because the area is much different. It's like narrow all the way across, where Moldorm 1 fight, you have like this big wide area where you can like walk around behind his tail the whole time.
And I imagine many people out there are like, why don't you just Moldorm bounce instead? I'm just gonna go paint the Mona Lisa here. Compiling getting the Cold Stare fight we did not get to see before while MrScruffNinjaTuna is doing the Aghanim 2 fight. Both of them a triplet, a trio, if you will, of enemies to take care of. Compiling knocking out his fight very well. MrScruffNinjaTuna getting some very weird offsets.
Compiling picks up a fetch quest on Cold Stare. Gotta go turn it in now.
I have to imagine in compiling situations, seeing the dot done is illuminating.
Oh yeah, as soon as he sees the dot done, he knows. He knows. Honestly, I'd be surprised to see him finish out this seed, because he's going to be so far behind when the dot done occurs.
Well, either way, playing to the fullest all the way through, compiling has not been showing any signs of frustration, of rage. We see a lot of people when they're playing in these games and in these high-pressure situations, because this is a restream, it's very brave to be on restream, you know, kind of rage slashing, you know, dashing around, getting upset. Compiling has been very composed throughout this race, and I'm very impressed by that.
So Scruff is trying to do these Samaria block strats. It's much harder than it looks if you've ever seen somebody do it. But the idea is that you put the block on the other side of you from Ganon, and then the block keeps you from rebounding away when you do a spin. But it manages to get through phase 1 without pulling it off, and then the block's just gonna sit there. Oh, there he goes.
Of course, with so many sprites on screen, Kena Samaria does introduce a fair amount of lag into the fight, which is both harmful and helpful if you're like going to get sniped by somebody in the fanfare. You might be a little nervous about that in his position, potentially. But the lag frames also help you position better. So both that and, say, the Cold Stare fight, sometimes you use that lag to your advantage.
Just unable to get the 2 cycle in phase 2 there. You're going to have to do this once more.
Cannon Burner will offer us a little bit of time to avoid those fire bats as well as the invincibility to survive the first few. On to phase 3. And there it is. There's that fire rod.
Come on.
Well, compiling knows what to do from here. Very straightforward route to the end of the race. Just got to do Skull Woods and Palace of Darkness. MrScruffNinjaTuna into phase 4 just needs to get a spin in order to blue phase the Ganon. We'll do a silver arrow. No torch glitch, but not necessary anyway. I really like the heads-up decision by MrScruffNinjaTuna here to not press any D-pad directions when he knew he was going to tank a fire bat hit. It actually reverses your D-pad direction, easily sending you off the ledge if you're not prepared for it.
more arrow. Ooh, gets another bet. And just... Alright, this'll do it. I don't know what's happening on compiling screen.
I'm going to guess maybe potentially some difference in delay, because as of right now, MrScruffNinjaTuna will be finishing in first place, finishing with an official SRL time of 1 hour, 38 minutes, and 18 seconds. Get your GGs in chat, folks, and GGs for both of these runners, as compiling has elected to forfeit from the race, but both of them putting on a fantastic show for everyone here on Speed Gaming today. Unfortunate scenario that happened to compiling, but played strong all the way through. We'll look to see if we can get an interview from both of these runners. Looks like we have MrScruffNinjaTuna in the setup room here. We'll pull him in here just a moment. I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions to ask. And we are joined by the victor of the race, MrScruffNinjaTuna. Congratulations, GG.
GG.
So I believe with stream delay included, you had an opportunity to catch up a little bit on the later events of the race. Would you hazard a guess as to which decision you made that ended up winning this?
Oh, I knew the moment I found it in Skull Woods that was what's gonna win it for me. But yeah, that fire rod, that's gotta be it. And after seeing the terrible luck that compiling ran into, it's alright. He's gonna go ahead and mop the floor with me in the second game, so it's alright. We'll have fun with the third too.
That's a very positive sentiment, and I appreciate that personally, because in flip scenario, I mean, running as well as compiling did today could easily have turned this exact mirrored situation. So the awareness of that, I mean, that puts you in a good position to be ready for game two. I'm sure both of you will be putting on just as competitive as the race as we saw earlier on in the race, because both of you were actually trading leads quite a lot up until that point, pretty much. So yeah, I think everybody here is going to be really excited to see how this turns out in the next game. But I mean, looking forward past that, I mean, other opportunities in the seed to, pull away flippers, other items that we found that were advantageous. You ended up getting the hammer later on. What were you feeling when you picked up that hammer?
Kind of mixed feelings, honestly. I thought at first that I was a little bit behind because I had gotten the hammer a little bit later, thinking, alright, I could have gone up the mountain first with that hook shot, gotten the hammer, made the left side Dark World a whole lot cleaner, but then it dawned on me, the only thing that would have changed differently is would have gotten the flippers a little bit sooner, but it also helped point me towards Swamp and get me those Titan's mitts a lot quicker than I thought I would.
Yeah, I feel like that was the decision point. Like that's where everything started going wrong for compiling. It went right for you. Is when you took the hook shot across the river and he took the hook shot to East Death Mountain, and they were both reasonable plays. And like I remember I said at the time that I thought it was more likely for progression to be from across the river. But I probably would have gone to the mountain first just because it's a little more dense and I really want to hammer before I go to Thieves Town. But you went across the river, so can you tell us why you chose to do that rather than going to the mountain?
Honestly, it's because it's 5 in the morning and I forgot about it.
Don't kill compiling.
Yeah, when I got the mushroom, I was like, oh hey, I'm gonna go to Witch and turn that in and do Catfish and Zora. Oh hey, it's the hookshot, I can go across the river. Yay!
So are you saying you would have gone to the mountain first? Had
Yeah.
you thought about it? Yeah.
Had I thought about it, I would have gone to the mountain first.
I mean, there's still a chance where if you go to the mountain first, you still dip front of Skull Woods, but yeah, it doesn't look nearly as good as if you go across the river first.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that rang through my mind as soon as I saw that hook shot was one of the questionnaires to be a commentator for this wonderful tournament. And it kept echoing in my head. Hook shot, hook shot.
Oh, did you not give a bunch of sarcastic replies so Kern would have to talk to you about it later? Because that's what I did.
I did the first time. But the second time around, they were like, alright, give us a serious answer.
Well, we're definitely blessed to have both your voices here in this tournament. And of course, those of you out there who are interested in providing tournament commentary, you probably do better than I can. Let's be real about it.
I
always
like
tell
you.
jokes.
Don't say
But
that. Don't say
there
that.
is a quiz that you can submit. There's a quiz you can submit. You can try and volunteer for it. Both of these two did it. And if they can do it, and if I can do it, or at least help write the thing, surely there are more insightful voices out there than the people who look at the quizzes. But we definitely want more voices. There are lots of races to cover, lots of a link to the past randomizer. Clearly, all of you who are watching today were present for the race. So maybe there's an interest in casting for it. Just my personal plug that we would love to see you sign up for it. Lots more to go, and the more voices, the merrier. If you want to find that application link, that is in the main tournament Discord. You can look at the welcome section. It should be a pinned message.
Good question in chat. When's the rematch, Mr. Scruff? Do we already know?
Oh, yes. Next one, I will be awake for it, thankfully. It's going to be Thursday at, I think, 2:30 p.m. Eastern?
It's afternoon race.
Yeah.
Do we know the settings yet?
I believe compiling did say he was wanting to do map compass shuffle.
Oh, man.
It's okay. When I lose that one, I'm going to make it fast Ganon, so it'll be fast Ganon map compass shuffle.
We were talking about this before, and I was trying to think, like, why would somebody choose map compass shuffle? Like, what's the payoff there? Compared to, like, you put on fast Ganon because your execution's weaker, or you put it on 6/6 because you can do molar and bounce but your opponent can't, stuff like that. But what do you gain from map compass shuffle?
Annoying your competitor.
I guess in that case he should have scheduled it super early.
No. See, this is why this one was my lucky win, because me being sleep deprived and him being in his prime, it shows that I couldn't have won any other way.
I definitely understand that sentiment. Sometimes it just works out. That's just how it ends up being. But give yourself some credit. You did win this race. This is the first of the series. You will have to face off against compiling again, in a challenging scenario. Maps and compass shuffle is genuinely mentally taxing, as we definitely get into certain routines when we're checking things, when we're doing stuff in dungeons, and breaking that mold is potentially a effort to throw you off your game. And I applaud compiling for choosing that option, because anything that gets in the head of your opponent, definitely a valid strategy in this tournament. That's why we have it as one of the options you can select. So I'm very excited to see that. And of course, if you want to catch more of the tournament here on the Speed Gaming channels, there is a schedule link below the page, or below the player, that you can use to see what's currently on the schedule, what's coming up. Hopefully we can get a restream for this the rest of the series. There are a lot of races, of course. But even if not, you can follow these two runners here on Twitch if you want to see when they're live and when they're racing. So even if you can't see it on a restream, you would still be able to follow the series. Challenge links are also available if you want to see the entire bracket. We're getting very close to solidifying this group, and going to be really exciting to see how the rest of this group finishes out.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Keep an eye out for Group D, folks. Definitely going to be taking the brackets by storm.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate everyone doing everything you can with the restream, and hope to see you guys again soon.
If you end up watching this back, please forgive the early morning comms. Goya was good. I stumbled.
That's all right. I'll sleep first and then I'll watch it.
Wise man, wise man.
I only questioned like half of your decisions, I swear.
Only half? Man, you're giving me too much credit.
Well, I Don't skip the vanilla Mickey Chess and Eastern if you're not willing to skip it forever. That's all I'm saying.
I know. Night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty, so some last minute business before we sign off for the day. If you're looking to catch more today, we do have other matches on the schedule on this channel based on Eastern Standard Time in 2 hours at 9:20 a.m. We have Banta versus Lin Lin Lin. We also have F. Coughlin versus Death King 2, or the second, at 2:30 p.m. on Speed Gaming 3, and a host of other matches going on throughout the rest of the day. Feel free to check out that schedule link below if you want to see exactly where they are across the Speed Gaming channels. Of course, follow all of those Speed Gaming channels so you can get notified when these races start. Or just keep an eye out on everything. You know, I mean, there are a lot of people out there who do that. I mean, you could also show some love to my co-commentator, Koi, and of course our tracker today, Sinhei. I swear I'm gonna get that name right. I apologize twice for probably butchering that, but everybody involved, big thanks. Wouldn't be able to do this without you. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, absolutely.
We were not able to bring both runners in for an interview, but there's still plenty of series to watch. I'll leave the closing thoughts to you, Koi.
Put me on the spot. I don't know. Rando's awesome. Play more Rando. Watch more Rando. Speed Gaming's awesome. Always great content. And Yuta's awesome. And I love you. Marry me.
Oh wow. On air? Oh Jesus. I put you on the spot. You put me on the spot. No, I wasn't
See
ready
how
for
that
that
works?
either.
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, I'm not gonna try and get too hitched to the jokes here, but
Oh
I
my
gotta leave
God.
out at least one pun.
I hate you.
Something about band on the ring finger.
I love puns. Actually, I'm very bad at them, but I love them.
Well, before we carry this on till death does us part, we should probably sign off, everybody. Lots of rando ahead for you today. Thank you for tuning in. I was Yuday Mystic, joined today by...
Koi.
I almost feel like you need to have a longer name for that.
I had to think about it.
Well, I was trying to play coy here, but
Oh my gosh.
it didn't work out. That's enough. Folks, we're signing off. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.